All right, and we are here. Welcome everybody to the KingVic show, episode 3. We're going to call this one the weekend from hell. We're going to talk about all the events that happened last weekend. 13 mass shootings over the course of June 3rd to June 8th. Actually, that would make it 14 mass shootings. So, tragical weekend. But let's just jump right into it. More than a dozen people were killed, more than 70 injured, and in at least 14 mass shootings. This year alone, the U.S. has suffered 246 mass shootings, far more than there have been days in the year so far, and that's according to the Gun Violence Archives. We are at the same number of mass shootings that we were at in 2021 through June 5th. We're on pace to surpass last year's total or match it, which was the worst on record. So last year we were the worst on record, and we're on pace to do the exact same number or to basically go past that. In 2022, there were 161 mass shootings through June 5th. 2019, there were 154. So in the last 2 years, this number has gone up increasingly. So we only went up by a little bit, and then it took a huge leap last year and then this year. The Gun Violence Archive defines a mass shooting as at least 4 people are shot, excluding the shooter. So that's what we're going to base everything off of. Everything that we're going to talk about today, it's going to be based off of 4 people being at least 4 people being shot, not counting the shooter. So these following, we'll go through the timeline now. These following mass shootings that transpired over the weekend up until June 8th. So first we got June 8th. You got Yuma, Arizona. 2 vehicles were traveling northbound when multiple shots were fired from both vehicles at each other. One vehicle proceeded to Yuma Regional Medical Center as all subjects in the vehicle were struck by the gunfire. The other vehicle fled the scene. That one, I believe, the latest update, they had not found the other vehicle yet. June 7th, we have 3 different mass shootings. One in Chesterfield, Virginia. 1 person was killed and 5 others were wounded. Baltimore, Maryland. 4 men were shot, 2 of whom died, 3 more wounded. Chicago, Illinois. 4 people shot. Chattanooga, Tennessee. 2 people were killed and 14 wounded at or near a nightclub. Saginaw, Michigan. 3 people were killed and 2 others wounded in a shooting on Sunday. Arizona again, 2 men killed and 2 other injured after a shooting outside a Mesa bar early Sunday. Then we go to Grand Rapids, Michigan. 1 person killed and 3 people wounded. Andrews, South Carolina. Drive-by shooting, 5 people injured. At least drive-by shootings and gas prices are what they are. Like, what y'all doing? June 4th, Philadelphia. At least 2 people were killed, 11 others hit by gunfire at a bustling entertainment district. Obviously, when I say bustling entertainment district, you know what that means. A 3rd person who died might have been one of the shooters, police have said. So, Clarendon County, South Carolina, 5 teens and a 12-year-old were among 7 people wounded in a shooting at a graduation party on Saturday that killed 1 adult, police said in a statement. So, Clarendon County Police have said that. Next up, still June 4th, Arizona. 1 person killed and 8 others were injured in a shooting on Saturday at a strip mall. Summerton, South Carolina. 1 person killed and 7 others were wounded at a graduation party. Who does this stuff at a graduation party? We've already got 2 graduation parties on this list. Ecorse, Michigan. 5 people wounded. Macon, Georgia. 1 person killed and 3 others wounded. Tacoma, Texas. 5 people were wounded after a shooter fired into a crowd gathered for a high school graduation. That's 3 high school graduations so far. And this transpired all over the weekend, all over last weekend. We had another one in Philadelphia. At least 2 people were killed and 11 others hit by gunfire at the bustling entertainment district. Again, y'all know what that is. Phoenix, 1 person was killed and 8 others wounded at another strip mall. The slain victim was a 14-year-old girl. Now, that's 2 at malls. And then the last one on June 4th happened in Hempstead, New York. 1 person killed and 3 others were wounded. And then June 3rd, Omaha, Nebraska, 1 person killed and 3 others wounded. Chesterfield, Virginia, 1 person killed and 5 others wounded. So obviously this is a big issue. Most of the people had the guns legally, except for the drive-by shootings. The drive-by shootings, they were not legally obtained, but everything else from what I could read was legally obtained. So Matthew McConaughey came out and said in an op-ed that he wrote about the Uvalde Robb Elementary School shooting that took place. Keep in mind, he is from Uvalde, so he was very passionate in this. He says there's a difference between control and responsibility when it comes to guns. The first mandate that can infringe on our right, and the second is a duty that will preserve it. There is no constitutional barrier to gun responsibility. Keeping firearms out of the hands of dangerous people is not only the responsible thing to do, it's the best way to protect the Second Amendment right. We can do both. He is 100% right. We can definitely do both. There is no reason that we shouldn't do both. If it means keeping guns out of the wrong hands, that's the best thing to do. He went on to outline a series of actions that need to be taken. So number 1 that he outlined, all gun purchases should require a background check, and 88% of Americans support this, including responsible gun owners in Texas. Number 2, unless you are military, you should be 18 years or you should be 21 years old to purchase a assault rifle. I'm not talking about 12 gauge shotguns or lever action hunting rifles. He's talking about like an AR-15 in this situation, and I totally agree with that. Red flag laws should be the law of the land. These measures, which are already in effect in 19 states and Washington, D.C. So we got 19 states and the District of Columbia that all support red flag laws. This definitely should be rolled out. I agree with him. All 50 states should roll this out. There's no reason we don't. We need to institute a national waiting period for assault rifles. Individuals often purchase weapons in a fit of rage, harming themselves or others. So he's right with this statement, and I don't agree with this statement at the same time, because I think a lot of people that purchase guns purchase them for the right reasons. They're not going out and committing these type of crimes. But then the people that are doing these type of crimes, they're the ones that are going out in a fit of rage and buying these. A lot of the times when people are harming themselves, they're just finding a gun somewhere. Or some of these people that do these, they're taking like their parents' guns and doing this. So in that situation, I think the parent needs to be held responsible. If your gun is easily accessible, like 100%, they should be held liable for what happens, just as much as the person that committed the crime. So I really want to see some action taken on this. Right now, it seems like everything's sitting at a stalemate when it comes to the White House, or not the White House, the Senate and the House of Responsibilities, because Republicans don't want to do much. I'll go on to cover some more about that from a senator. He's claiming that Republicans are starting to do more, but I don't know if that is just, if that's just him talking out of his ass to make it seem like somebody's sitting at the table to do it, or if they're just sitting at the table to make sure their name's out and make sure they got their names there, so that way they can be like, oh, I was part of the, how do you put it? I was part of the solution. Then so Matthew McConaughey went on. He went to the White House, and I'm trying to find the speech that he wrote. He went to the White House and he had an impassionate speech. It was something that I like. It almost like brought me to tears, and I was just kind of like floored by it because he really spoke out about it, really spoke out against this, which everybody should. So he spoke in great detail about the children and what dreams they held before they were killed. One wanted to be a marine biologist. One had been preparing to read a Bible verse at a church the next week. Another wanted to go to art school in Paris. He also says that you could feel the shock in town. You could feel the pain, the denial, the disillusion, anger, blame, sadness, loss of lives, dreams halted. He said, due to the exceptionally large exit wounds of an AR-15 rifle, most of the body so mutilated that only DNA test or green Converse could identify them. Many children were left not only dead but hollow. So yes, counselors are going to be needed in Uvalde. So he brings this up and he talks about this where there was one particular girl that he brought up. I don't remember her name. I'm trying to find it right now as I'm looking. But there was one girl where she couldn't even be identified because her face was just mangled from the AR-15. He talks about her and what she wanted to do. She would always wear green Converses, and the Converses had a heart on the front of them because I believe she was the one that wanted to be the marine biologist. And that was just a sad moment in his speech. Wow. So he says, you know what, every one of these parents wanted what they asked us for. What every parent separately expressed in their own way to Camille and me, that they want their children's dreams to live on, that they want their children's dreams to continue, to accomplish something after they're gone. They want to make their loss of life matter. He also said there was now a window of opportunity to enact meaningful gun legislation reform, and called for universal background checks, raising the minimum age for purchasing an AR-15 to 21, a waiting period for purchasing AR-15s, and the implementation of red flag laws like we just talked about. These are reasonable, practical, tactical regulations to our nation's states, communities, schools, and homes. Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals. These regulations are not a step back, they are a step forward for a civil society and the Second Amendment, McConaughey said in a roughly 20-minute speech from the podium. So I agree with that. But the Constitution was made by guys who are no longer around, obviously. But these these amendments and everything were all made in a time where everything was totally different in the world. You didn't have guns weren't readily accessible like they are now. Like I said, different time. Like something needs to be amended in these amendments don't work for today's day and age. You've got other countries that have far less shootings than we do. And I think China was one that had less than us, and they have more people than us. Like, please explain that to me. And that's per capita. So when I was looking up reports, there was we were within the top 10 in mass shootings. And that was something that was really eye-opening, because most of the countries that were ahead of us in that top 10 were countries that were like third world, or they were third world countries. So to sit here and talk about we were number 10 and third world countries were ahead of us, like, that's not a hat. Being number 10 and that's not a hat. That's not where you want to hang your hat on. I'm going to try to find that post, because a lot of people were on there were like, well, we're number 10, we're not the worst. And it's like, that's not something you want to really talk about. Let's see. Sorry about this, guys. I am looking it up right now. All right. So I don't know if anybody here has followed wrestling, but Mick Foley, the hardcore maniac that he was, Mama's little boy, he made a statement on Twitter saying, reading this cold, callous tweet from Glenn Jacobs, who is the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, literally hurt his heart. So here is the quote. Every violent death is a tragedy. That said, the mainstream media would have you believe that America is the land of gun violence and mass shootings, when in fact, as Hannah D. Cox points out, and he has an article and a video of her pointing out, our per capita rates of gun deaths are actually much lower than other countries. And when he says that, let me see if I can find it. So last year alone, handguns killed 10 people in Japan, 50 people in Great Britain, 47 in Switzerland, 611 in Canada, 105 in Israel, 41 in Sweden, 38,658 in the United States. 38,658 in the United States. And he wants to talk about that we are not high per capita rates of deaths, and actually much lower than other countries. So here's the article I was looking for. So firearm related death rate per 100K population. So Honduras is at 60, third world country. Venezuela, another one, 49.22. El Salvador, and when I say third world country, I mean compared to what we are. So these countries don't have laws like we do, and they're not run like we are. But then you got Eswatini. I never even heard of that one. 37.16. Guatemala 34.1. Jamaica at 30.72. Brazil at 21.9, Colombia at 18.65, Panama at 15.11, and then the United States at 12.11. So to be among those, like, we shouldn't be anywhere near those. With all the money this country has, we should not be anywhere near those. So compared to other countries similar to us, gun violence per 1,000 people in developed economies. So economies, the U.S. far outweighs or far out exceeds everybody on this. You got Cyprus, Bulgaria, Malta, Canada, Portugal, Latvia, Greece, Italy, Croatia, Belgium, France, Lithuania, Slovakia, Estonia, Sweden, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Finland, Switzerland, Slavonia, Australia, Ireland, Czech Republic, Spain, Australia, New Zealand. By far the most gun violence deaths for people in developed economies. It's crazy. And then gun deaths per 100 people, when you look at a map of it, it gives you a teal color that's negative or below 5. You get a grayish blue color that's 5 to 10, like regular blue 10 to 30, navy blue 30 to 50, a darker blue 50 to 75, and then black is over 100. We're the only country on this over 100. Only country on that one. So it's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous that we're over 100. But let's get back on track here. So Matthew McConaughey, it was a 20-minute speech that he was on, or that he did. He got to meet the president for this while he was there speaking. He goes on to say, we got to take a sober, humble, and honest look in the mirror and rebrand ourselves based on what we truly value. We got to get some real courage and honor our immortal obligations instead of our party affiliations. 100%. He continues, enough with the counterpunching, enough of the invalidation of the other side. Let's come to the table. Let's come to the common table that represents American people. Find a middle ground, a place where most of us Americans live anyway. That's very powerful. Finding a middle ground because most of us Americans live there anyway. Especially on this issue, because I promise you, America, you and me, we are not as divided as we are being told we are. McConaughey held meetings with lawmakers on Capitol Hill earlier that day to discuss gun reform legislation. He weighed so if you didn't know, he weighed in to run for governor of Texas last year, but ultimately ruled one out for now. He said, it was a path that I'm choosing not to take this moment. He told reporters on Capitol Hill on Tuesday he hoped he was making progress in his meetings with lawmakers. He had left a meeting with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and was headed to another meeting with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. So you get an actor using his platform, which is awesome, to further gun reform, which is great. The president earlier that Tuesday, this past Tuesday, met with Democrat Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who is leading the bipartisan negotiations on gun reform. Murphy told reporters at the White House he met with the president for about a half an hour and spoke about the outlines of the ongoing gun reform negotiations. Why can't I say that word? Today is just wow. Murphy emphasized how much he appreciated Biden and the White House giving senators space to try and reach a deal, and said his goal remains to reach a deal by the end of this week. So we're at the end of the week and they haven't had a deal. Biden needs to not give these people space, because look at what's happened with giving them space. Giving them space, they just wait it out until nobody's talking about these incidents anymore, and they just go about their day. They honestly do not care about you and I. as I'm looking at this camera right now, they do not care about you and I. They care about money. And something like this will take money out of their pockets, even though it's right for us. While the odds of any sweeping reforms remain very steep, lawmakers have expressed optimism that a deal for narrow and targeted bill could be reached as soon as the end of the week. John Pierre, who is John Pierre? John Pierre said Monday Biden was encouraged by the Senate negotiations on gun control measures. The president delivered an impassioned speech from the White House after the mass shooting at Uvalde Elementary School last month and ratcheted up the pressure on Congress to act. He has called on Congress to implement stricter gun laws, including a ban on assault rifles, tougher background checks, and higher minimum age of purchases. So this comes from CNN. So my thoughts on that is he needs to be putting more pressure on the House and the Senate to make sure they get a bill going through. I don't care what anyone there has to say. Biden needs to be stepping in and making sure that this gets done. We should not be waiting for this any longer. It's completely ridiculous that we're still waiting on this. So in a CBS interview, Senator Chris Murphy again says, who he is a Democrat, by the way, and like I said before, he's from Connecticut. There are more Republicans at the table talking about changing our gun laws and investing in mental health than any time since Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook was a while ago too. Let's look. Can't remember exactly when Sandy Hook was. All right. So Sandy Hook was December 14th, 2012. So 10 years? Almost 10 years. And we haven't done anything to check or to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen anymore. So I know there was once a ban on assault rifles at one point. Okay. So it was 1994 to 1996. So we haven't had any kind of ban on assault rifles since 1996. And that's ridiculous that we haven't had a ban since then. And look at what's happening now. Like, you have everything popping up. Okay, so I am incorrect here. It looks like Bill Clinton signed the bill to ban. Oh, he signed as part of a larger crime bill on September 13, 1994. The bill was passed with a sunset provision of a decade in place, meaning that when lawmakers agreed to it, they knew it would automatically expire in 2004 unless renewed through another vote. Congress did not reauthorize that ban at the time, meaning that the sale and manufacture of those previously banned weapons was legal once again. So on September 13th, 2004. So Congress failed in that situation. This is per ABC News, just so you guys know. So Congress failed us in 2004 by not reauthorizing that ban. So thanks, Congress. So Sean Murphy talks about the bipartisan group is considering red flag laws, changes to background check system, investments in mental health, and funding for school security. So although I agree with all of this, we can't even pay our teachers enough. And we're going to talk about school funding for security. I'm all for school funding for security, one, pay your teachers more. And then two, yes, put more security in schools. That's 100% one thing we need. And your school resource officer should be there before school even starts. And you shouldn't just have one on campus. I don't think when I was in high school we had one, we had two. And they were never there before school started. They were always there 2-3 hours after school started. Your school resource officer or security, school security, whatever you want to call them, they should be there before the school day even starts. And honestly, they shouldn't be sitting in an office the entire day. Like, one of them, if you have multiple, which every school should have multiple, you should have one of them out patrolling the parking lot, patrolling around the entire school to make sure nobody's trying to jump fences, nobody's trying to get into the school that shouldn't be there, nobody looks suspicious. And then you should have one roaming the inside of the school campus, not sitting in an office. I did see that a lot when I was in high school, where one of the officers was out and about, not really doing too much, and then one of them was sitting in the office not doing anything. Then a CBS poll that was provided over the weekend gave a question, and the question was, are mass shootings something we, and it gave two options that people voted on, or that Republicans and Democrats voted on, and I believe this is the Congress. So the first one goes, are mass shootings something we can prevent and stop if we really tried? Which 72% of people voted for that. The second one is, are mass shootings something we unfortunately have to accept as part of free society? Which had 28%. Shame on that 28% of people. Shame on them. That is not something we have to accept as part of free society. No. That is complete bullshit. We do not have to accept that. These people, those 28 people, don't want to change anything. More than likely, the NRA is in their back pocket, and that's why they don't want to change anything, which is completely wrong. We definitely need change. Face the Nation, which is a CBS program, noted that there is a partisan split here, with 44% of Republicans saying mass shootings are something we have to accept. Like I said, no, we don't. That's not something we have to accept. It's ridiculous that these assholes come out and say we have to accept this as part of society. No, it's not. Like, I'm going to look it up right now. So the last shooting, or the last mass shooting in Australia, was 1996. They reformed their gun laws and haven't had a mass shooting since. Let's go to UK. So the first, okay, so there was a 11-year gap in between mass shootings in the UK. They had one in 2021, and the one before that was in 2010. So you got an 11-year gap there. So Canada tightened their laws after a 1989 mass shooting, and you don't hear about this coming from Canada. Germany tightened their laws around this in 2002, New Zealand in 2019, Norway last year. So 2021 for Norway. Only the United States, whose rate and severity of mass shooting is without a parallel outside of conflict zones, has so consistently refused to answer these events and tighten gun laws. Though such restrictions have always brought some controversy, most were broadly embraced by voters in other countries. So even in Australia, where conservative-leaning politics and rural traditions have long favored gun ownership, citizens broadly accepted the buyback. Some even surrendered weapons that were legally permitted to keep in a show to support their country's tightening gun laws. Every mass shooting is, in a sense, a fringe event driven by one-off factors like the ideology or personal circumstances of the shooter. The risk is impossible to fully erase. So that is true. The risk, you're never going to erase all of it because people will get their hands on guns no matter what and no matter how. That's just always going to be the case. But a lot of these shootings that we have now, they're legally purchased guns. Now, I don't think we need to do what like Australia did, where they did a buyback for illegal guns. Obviously, probably like an AR-15 or something like that, maybe. But I don't think taking away guns from people that own them legally is the correct answer in this situation, because if you take back guns, and this is only banned guns, if you take back guns, how are you supposed to defend yourself in situations where you need to defend yourself? So that I don't agree with. So Canada applied new rules around gun control in 1995, 6 years after a shooting. So 1989, they had a shooting, but those were mostly abolished. In 2012, while Canada's gun rules remain far stricter than those in the United States, they're looser than in most other countries. Gun homicide rates and frequency of mass shootings all follow a similar pattern, a fraction of America's, but higher than in most other developed countries. So since 2011, Norway has had a far right terrorist attack that killed 77. Not really much there. And this is all from the New York Times. So people that think this is the norm and what we're bound to go through, like those 28% of people that we just talked about, it's not. It's really not. I mean, the truth is we have the most mass shootings in the world. And we're among the worst mass shootings in the world. We're probably the top worst mass shootings when it comes to countries that are developed. We are the worst when it comes to school shootings. And a lot of people that make these comments on stuff need to make sure that they're doing their research before they comment on anything like this. Like, for anyone to come out and say that we're not one of the worst and make it seem like everything's okay and that not being the worst is the right thing, like, no. That's like saying I suck at basketball, but at least I'm not the worst person on the court. Like, no. You played organized basketball and I suck at basketball, I'm going to be at the end of the bench or not even on the team. Like, this is not something that we should have to live with. This is not something that gets us by or that should get by. And these people, these congressmen that sit here and don't take any action, like, you're just as responsible as the person that's killing, because your inaction caused something like this to happen. Because let me state one more time, The guns in most of these cases were purchased legally. So these congressmen could have done something sooner. Hell, could have done something during Columbine or Virginia Tech or Parkland or Sandy Hook. Like, you could have did something at any point, but you didn't. But you didn't. Sandy Hook was 12 years ago. Or 10 years ago. So Sandy Hook was 10 years ago and we haven't taken any action. We haven't taken any action since then. Okay, so there is something that comes out. So the House passed, let's see. So this is from NPR. It looks like the House passed a wide-ranging gun control bill Wednesday in response to recent mass shootings in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas. That would raise the age limit for purchasing semi-automatic rifles and prohibit the sale of ammunition magazines with a capacity of more than 15 rounds. Okay, so we're going to raise the limit for semi-automatic rifles and prohibit the sale of ammunition magazines with a capacity of 15 rounds, or with a capacity of more than 15 rounds. The legislation passed by a mostly party line vote of 223 to 204. It has almost no chance of becoming a law as the Senate pursues negotiations focused on improving mental health programs, bolstering school security, and enhanced background checks. But the House bill does allow Democrat lawmakers a chance to frame for voters in November where they stand on policies that polls show are widely supported. There's one issue right there. Who gives a fuck about your political stance and whether you get voted in or not? One thing that definitely needs to change when it comes to our congressmen and women is you should not be able to sit on your seat for 50 years. There needs to be terms. Just like the president can serve 2 terms at 4 years apiece, you should be exactly the same or less. You got old heads sitting in there that aren't up to date with anything. They don't know what they're talking about anymore. They're still sitting in 1950, 1960, 1970, thinking 2022 is the same as back then, and it's not. These dudes need to be pushed out. New people need to be pushed in. That way, new ideas can come to the table. Younger ideas can come to the table. And we don't have some old heads with old-fashioned views sitting in Congress for 50, 60 years. Completely ridiculous that you've got old dudes sitting there making laws, signing bills, holding up parties because we don't have anything that limits their terms. Got off on a little tangent there. We can't save every life, but my God, shouldn't we try? America, we hear you, and today in the House, we are taking the action you are demanding, and this is from Republican Veronica Escobar, or Representative Veronica Escobar. She's a Democrat from Texas. Take note of who is with you and who is not. So that statement right there, what does that do for children? Take note of who is with you and who is not. So these kids that were killed in Robb Elementary, they took note that they were with team or classmates and teachers, and somebody broke into the school. Okay, he's not supposed to be there, but when you're ambushed by a gunman, how are you supposed to take note of him before? How? This push comes after a House committee heard wrenching testimony from from recent school shootings of family members, including from 11-year-old girl Maya Carrillo, who covered herself with a dead classmate's blood to avoid being shot. Wow. Seemingly never-ending cycle of mass shootings in the United States has really stirred Congress to act, obviously. But the shooting of 19 children and 2 teachers in Uvalde has revived efforts in a way that has lawmakers from both parties talking about the need to respond. It's sickening. It's sickening that our children are forced to live in this constant fear, said House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she's a Democrat in California. Pelosi, stop fucking speaking. Stop speaking and do something. Pelosi then says the House vote would make history by making progress, but it's unclear where the House measure will go after Wednesday's vote, given that Republicans were adamant in their position. The answer is not to destroy the Second Amendment, but that is exactly where the Democrats want to go. That was said by House of Representative Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio. Well, something needs to be done about the Second Amendment, bruh. Like, I don't think it needs to be completely destroyed, but amendments need to happen to it to bring it to the 2022. Like, what? Let's see something. So we're talking about something that was written in 1787. 1787. We're in 2022. Talking 200 plus years ago that this was written, and we're still trying to use it as law today. Guns weren't the same back then as they are now. Guns are totally different. Guns are more powerful. Guns are faster. I mean, back then, what you had something where you had to load one bullet into it, and then after you got done shooting, you loaded another bullet into it. Like, those weren't AR-15s. Those weren't handguns with a slight pull of the trigger you could shoot. Like, those were guns where you had to load up and then shoot, load up, then shoot, load up, then shoot. Most of those guns didn't have clips in them to where you just had to pull a trigger, and then once you unloaded 15 or 10 or 8, once you unloaded that, you just throw another clip in and go. Like, back then, you go to shoot somebody, if you miss, like, you got to reload and then go after them again and hope they haven't beaten you to death by the time you get your second bullet unloaded. Now you just unload a clip. Come on. The work to find common ground is mostly taking place in the Senate, where support from 10 Republicans will be needed to get a bill signed into law. Nearly a dozen Democrats and Republican senators met privately for an hour Wednesday in hopes of reaching a framework for compromise legislation by week's end. Participants said more conversations were needed and a plan that is expected to propose modest steps. So we're going to take modest steps and not do anything. So honestly, my opinion on that is, so they're sitting down, and by week's end, which I haven't heard anything by week's end, we're already at the end of the week. And I'm sure they don't sit on the floor on Saturdays unless they really have to. But there hasn't been anything that comes out. More than likely, most Republicans are waiting for this just to blow over. So that's where everybody, I'm calling on you guys that are listening, you guys that are watching on YouTube tonight, just don't stop talking about this. Something needs to be changed. Something needs to be done, and Congress has been failing us. And then just remember all of this and how long they put this off when it comes time for election times. I implore everybody to vote during election times. Like, make sure you get your vote out there. Make sure we're making changes. Because this stuff has to stop, and I don't think it's going to stop unless changes are made. In a measure of the political peril that efforts to curb gun pose Republicans, 5 of the 6 lead Senate GOP negotiators do not face re-election until 2026. So 5 of those 6 people that lead the GOP that would put a stop to all of this aren't up for re-election until 2026. So in 2026, these dudes need to get the fuck out of there. They are Senators Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Susan Collins of Maine, John Cornyn of Texas, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. That dude needs to get out of there. And Tom Tillis of North Carolina. The 6th, Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, is retiring in January. Good, go away. It's also notable that none of the 6 is seeking the Republican president nomination. Well, none of the 6 of those should be trying to get up there, like trying to become president. Get the hell out of here. While Cornyn has said while Cornyn has said the talks are serious, he has not joined the chorus of Democrats saying the outlines of the deal could be reached by the end of the week. He told reporters Wednesday that he considers having an agreement before Congress begins a recess in late June to be an aspirational goal. Why is that an aspirational goal? Like, that should be a deadline, not a goal. You're talking, we're in mid-June. Yeah, we're in mid-June. Just over this last weekend, we had 8 mass shootings. We had over a dozen people dead, close to 60 people injured. And we're not trying to push this faster. We're not trying to come to an agreement. Like I said, people like that, Cornyn, what is his first name? John Cornyn. People like that, and he is from Texas. He is the senator of Texas, where children just died. People like that need to be out of Congress. Because if you think that's an aspirational goal, no, that should be a deadline. That should not be an aspirational goal. Get out of here with that. No. Fuck you, sir. Didn't even call you sir. The House bill stitches together a variety of proposals Democrats had introduced before the recent shootings of Buffalo and Uvalde. The suspects in the shooting at the Uvalde Elementary and Buffalo supermarket were both 18, authorities said, when they bought the semi-automatic weapons used in the attacks. The bill would increase the minimum age to buy such weapons to 21. A person under 21 can't buy a Budweiser. We should not let a person under 21 buy an AR-15 weapon of war. That comes from Republican Ted Lieu. He's Democrat, or not Republican. What the hell am I talking about? House of Representative Ted Lieu. He's a Democrat from California. So just reading through all of this, and going all through all my research, it looks like a lot of Democrats want to do something about this, but Republicans don't. You know why? Because the NRA backs Republicans, and they need that money for re-elections. Republicans had noted that a U.S. appeals court ruling last month found California's ban on the sale of semi-automatic weapons to adults under 21 was unconstitutional. This is unconstitutional and it's immoral. Why is it immoral? Because we're telling 18 and 19-year-olds to register for the draft. You can go die for your country. We expect you to defend us, but we're not going to give you the tools to defend yourself and your family. Representative or House of Representative Thomas Massey, Republican, Kentucky. Okay. An AR-15 is not a tool to defend yourself and your family. A handgun, shotgun, those are tools to defend your family, your house, your relatives, your pets. An AR-15 is not that. Come on. Get the fuck out of here, Thomas Massey. The House bill also includes incentives designed to increase the use of safe gun storage devices and creates penalties for violating safe storage requirements, providing for a fine and imprisonment of up to 5 years if a gun is not properly stored and is subsequently used by a minor to injure or kill themselves or another individual. Like I said earlier, parents should be held responsible if they're not locking up their guns a proper way. Simple as that. If you're not going to do your part to make sure your child cannot get at your gun, then you are just as responsible as they are if they kill themselves or if they kill others. Don't give me, I shouldn't have to lock up my gun, or I don't know how he got to it. If your kid can get in your safe to get your guns, your safe wasn't good enough in the first place. So I 100% support that in this. Safe storage should have requirements. You should, like, a cabinet with a like bike lock, or a cabinet with a like lock that can be cut, not the answer. Like, you can go get a gun safe at, what is it, like Bass Pro Shop. You can go get a gun safe. Most places, most gun shops carry them, but you can go get a gun safe for under $1,000. Oh, I don't think they're even that much. I think they're even cheaper. You can get a cheaper one than that has the like locker type deal. Like, I'm looking at right now. I'm just Googling it just to check. Tractor Supply Company has a 4-star rated one that's $230. Granger has one that's a 4-star for $193. There's a Sentinel 18 gun convertible fire safe with an electronic display for $100. If you wanted to go fancy, Tractor Supply has a 4.5-star 26 gun capacity Winchester gun safe for $649. Like, gun safes are not as much as we think they are, or as much as we thought some people might think they are. You got Home Depot has a Sherlock Combat 8 gun cabinet for $200. You got a Union Safe Company 24 gun fire resistant one at Harbor Freight for $569. You've got another one that's a Winchester gun safe for $449 with Tractor Supply. So they're out there. They're easily accessible. Now, you can even, if you only have handguns, you can go get a Century Safe pistol safe that has an electronic keypad for $187. Like, there's no reason not to have a safe. You should not have any of this stuff in a cabinet to where your kids can just open a cabinet or break a lock, like a bike lock, to get to your gun. It's completely ridiculous. So the bill that the House has approved also builds on Biden's administration's executive action banning fast action bump stock devices and ghost guns that are assembled without serial numbers. The House is also expected to approve a bill Thursday that would allow families, police, and others to ask federal courts to order the removal from firearms from people who are believed to be at extreme risk of harming themselves or others. 19 states and the District of Columbia currently have such red flag laws. Under the House bill, a judge could issue an order to temporarily remove and store the firearms until a hearing can be held no longer than 2 weeks later to determine whether the firearm should be returned or kept for a specific period. That's great. I love that. But here's the issue. So there should be a hearing. What's this hearing going to pertain to? Is it just some old ass people sitting there and judging upon who should get it back and who shouldn't? Are there mental health checks that are going to be done? Or are there psychological checks that are going to be done to make sure this person isn't going to harm themselves? Or is it going to harm another person? Or this person isn't just going to act like they aren't, and then once they get the gun back, they go back to planning what they were doing? Like, what does that entail in order to get your gun back? I am all for this, and I'm all for these red flag laws, but what, I got to do more research on that. But what does it entail for a person to get their gun back? Is it easy? Is it simple? Is it difficult? Like, I want to know. Let's see. Crap. All right. So the red flag law. The red flag law in the United States is a gun control law that permits variously police, family members, co-workers, and others to petition a state court to order the temporary removal of firearms from a person who they believe may present a danger to others or themselves. A judge makes the determination to the issue order based on statements and actions made by the gun owner in question. Refusal to comply with the order is punishable as a criminal offense. After a set time, the guns are returned to the person from who they were seized unless the court hearing extends the period of confiscation. Orders issued under red flag laws, also called risk-based gun removals, are known by several names. In Oregon, Washington, Maryland, Vermont, and Colorado, they're extreme risk protection orders. In Mexico or New Mexico, extreme risk firearm protection orders. In Florida, it's risk protection orders. California, gun violence restraining orders. Connecticut, it's risk warrants. Indiana, proceedings for the seizure and retention of firearms. As of 2021, 19 states have these red flag laws. Specific laws and to which degree they are utilized vary from state to state. I'm trying to see what may have judicial review. Nope. So that needs to be implemented everywhere. Like, and it should be. I agree. It should be varied by state whether what the severity of that law is and what that law entails. I don't think you could have one flat red flag law over all states because not all states have criminals like others. It just varies. So we'll see where that goes. We'll see what that happens. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions on what we talked about today. This is something that needs to change. This is something that needs to change soon because we've had inaction since 2012 when Sandy Hook happened. I mean, even still, like, you're talking Columbine was 1999. Which that was another school massacre. There was 15 deaths and 24 injuries in that one. So the guns that were used were Tech 9 and a shotgun. Tech 9 is Tech 9. It's an automatic pistol, so both are pistols. It's a 32 round pistol. All right. So even since then, we haven't done too much. That ban on assault rifles wouldn't have really done anything with that one, but we're talking. You had Virginia Tech, Susano School shooting in 2019, Sandy Hook in 2012. You've had all of these school shootings, and we've done nothing since 2004 to ban assault rifles or to even try to get a hold on school shootings. That's on you, Congress. That's on you. You need to change. Like I said, guys, let me know what you think about this whole situation. If you've got any ideas on what should change, post them on the comments. I'm starting a new Discord just for this podcast. It is going to be in the description of this video on a Linktree link. Go on that Linktree link. You'll see it'll say right at the top, the very first link more than likely will be follow the KingVic Show Discord. You can also follow the Troop Corps Discord. I'm going to be interacting in both. There's also all my social medias from Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, obviously YouTube is going to be on there. You've also got the podcast world on there. I got Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. I'm trying to get on to Google Podcasts. Probably shouldn't be saying all this, but whatever. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Come over there to Discord, hang out and interact with me. We will be having guests on the show occasionally, and Discord's going to be the place to do that at. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any show ideas or if you got anything you want me to cover in these shows. Go to the Discord and there's a section for it in there to give me your ideas. But I will see you guys on the next one.